This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
Hi everybody, you sick of us yet?
Oh, we're back.
Welcome into another episode of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. This is a baseball podcast, extra innings version, because we have some exciting news. But before that, that's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and we are sports reporters in Syracuse, New York. In a not at all shocking turn of events, Roki Sasaki has made his decision. He's going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. How you feeling?
Least shocking news of probably the entire offseason. I feel like when it came down to, I felt like the Padres had a shot there for a second, but when it came down to Dodgers, Blue Jays, I told you all, nobody ever goes to Toronto. We need to go through the list on maybe our next week's episode of how many big free agents the Toronto Blue Jays have lost out on in recent memory. But yes, Sasaki's a Dodger, and now the Dodgers starting five is just, it makes me want to cry.
It's upsetting, it's astounding, it's shocking. Let's get into it. Via Jeff Passan, he says Japanese star Roki Sasaki signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers, announced it on Instagram. The 23-year-old right-hander with a sizzling fastball and deadly splitter joined Samurai Japan teammate Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto with the World Series champion Dodgers. And just to take a look at this lineup, you got Ohtani, Yamamoto, Sasaki, Glasnow, and Blake Snell, with the average age, the mean, not the median, being 28.4, which, as we all know, is the median. The mean. Oh my God, the mean age is around 28, which is a player's prime. It's as good as it gets. That you have this nice mix of young and old, and every single person on that list is just straight up powerful, straight up dominant.
Cy Young's in there, MVP's in there. We touched on it last week. That starting five has the potential to be so dominant next year and for the few years beyond. Passan said, to follow that up, in a sport with fewer and fewer frontline starting pitchers, the Dodgers have five with number one type stuff and performance, an absolutely absurd array of talent. It is an absurd array of talent, and not, I wouldn't say young, but youngish. You don't got guys in there that are 35.
I would say youngish. I think that's completely fair to say, especially now with Sasaki, who's 23.
I know.
Crazy. And mind you, end of the day, I do think this still matters more, this rotation, for the regular season than the playoffs. I think in the playoffs still we'll see what happens, and anyone can have a chance, I believe, in a 3-game series or a 5-game series or a 7-game series. But it just, like, the more and more news you hear, the more and more you feel like the Dodgers are going to be the powerhouse, and it's always going to be tough for the Mets to get past them. I found out something today. Don't know if this will shock you or not. In a lot of the really early betting odds for who's going to be this year's World Series champion, the Dodgers are first. Guess who's second?
Are you going to say the Mets?
No.
Okay. AL or NL?
AL.
The Yankees?
Yeah. And I couldn't understand that with the Mets being third. It didn't make sense to me based on everything we've seen in the offseason. But then my dad pointed out to me that he believes the reason why is because the Mets would have to go through the Dodgers to get there. The Yankees wouldn't have to until the World Series.
Right, which we saw last year, yeah.
Which is legitimately what happened. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, I really do. I know I've been comparing it a lot to football lately, but it's giving AFC. It's that Bills-Chiefs matchup, and the Bills never making it to the Super Bowl because there's a really evil, strong powerhouse who's always standing in the way.
And you know what? This is not breaking news either, but I just think you look at the broader scope of baseball right now, and this is a broader topic, but the National League, to me, is so much more competitive than the American League. You have the Yankees in the AL, and you could have a surprise team next year. We'll see what happens. But in the NL, with the Dodgers, the Mets, you even have like the Phillies and Padres in there. The Braves were injured last year, that you feel like all could kind of make runs and compete with the Dodgers in that sense. And you don't really have those teams in the AL.
I know what you mean. Listen, there's always going to be a couple sleepers.
Yeah.
Or not even, I guess I wouldn't even consider like the Orioles a sleeper team, but I think the Orioles are a team that you can look out for, and the Tigers and whatnot. But I know what you mean. Like, end of the day, the National League looks scarier by the minute.
Yeah.
And it's going to be on my mind until we see that matchup that the Mets have to get past the Dodgers before they can think of anything else.
I know. To me, the NL has more young talent, but we'll see about it. So forget about just the starting five. That doesn't even include the rest of the pitching depth that the Dodgers have. They have Clayton Kershaw, Gavin Stone, Dustin May, Tony, I believe it's Gonsolin, and as our friend Wardy put it on Twitter, It really should just be illegal, the amount of pitching talent that the Dodgers have stacked. Like, it really should be.
It's the fact that Clayton Kershaw is the 6th name on the list.
I know. It's the fact that Clayton Kershaw is still a Dodger. Let's just start there.
It's the fact that Clayton Kershaw is still playing at all.
Right. All of that.
But it's funny you say that about the whole should be illegal or not. I don't know if this is something that we've talked about a lot on this podcast or not. I truly don't know how you feel about this. But when I saw all this happening, I definitely started to get into the discussions again of why doesn't the MLB have a salary cap when the NHL
we were going to go there today.
And the NFL?
Yeah.
And
because it's the players union. The players union doesn't want to allow it, which I get if I'm the players union.
Yeah. And I know that ultimately that is the why. Like, I know the reason why is because they have a players union and it's a stronger union than some of the other leagues have. But really, it's like, I don't even necessarily know where I stand on it yet. I still think that compared to other leagues, particularly like the NBA, I do think MLB has a lot more, I feel like anyone could still win.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the NBA and some of these leagues are a little bit more skewed. You're seeing a lot of the same repeat champions, even in football a little bit.
A lot can happen throughout a 162 game season, you know?
Yes. And to be fair, I do feel like in the MLB, even in the past 20 years, you can look it up. It's like there are a lot of different teams who have won the World Series. It's not like there's one team that's always sticking out.
The Royals in 2015, for instance, you know?
And some smaller name teams, I get all that.
Yeah.
But I know it might never happen, but should it? Like, do you think it should?
That'll be our question of the talk to us about salary caps and talk to us. We can do a broader offseason episode on that because honestly, it is really interesting to just look at the trajectory of the future of baseball and how, especially with what you're seeing this offseason with the Dodgers, with the Mets, with Soto, with the Yankees, how are the small market teams, a Milwaukee, a Cincinnati, a Pittsburgh, going to compete with, I guess, the level of money that these big market teams have to spend because they can't right now.
I don't want it to be a situation where the money ultimately ruins the sport.
Right, no.
I mean, you can, and I'm not saying we're there yet. I'm not being dramatic, and I'm still, congratulations to the Dodgers on yet another great player who you now have. But I'm just saying it does just make me think about it and wonder, we're still sitting in a good spot being Mets fans, having Steve Cohen as the owner.
Absolutely.
But to your point, for any of these other, smaller market teams who aren't spending in a really big way, honestly, if I was a fan, I would feel a little bit bitter. I would.
And the Mets spent like a small market team for so long. This is only the last few years that we've vaulted into the top 3, top 5 of spending. So we'll see about it. We'll see about it. We'll talk about salary caps and all that another time. But what's funny about the Sasaki situation is that it really didn't come down to the money. His signing bonus, only $6.5 million. The Dodgers did not win this sweepstakes because of money. The Dodgers actually had the least amount of money between every team in baseball to give Sasaki. They only had... going into Friday, see, now this is where things there's a little collusion here. I have somebody to yell at, and it's the Philadelphia Phillies. The Dodgers, coming into Friday, had just over $5 million in their international signing bonus pool, $5.1 million. That was tied for the smallest amount in the league. The Blue Jays, as we talked about in our last episode, had $8 to $10 million.
Not the
Blue Jays never win. But the Dodgers made 2 trades on Friday with the Phillies and the Reds to acquire more and complete Sasaki's $6.5 million signing. The Phillies, in particular, traded Dylan Campbell to the Dodgers, traded Dylan Campbell to the Phillies in a trade that included international bonus pool space. So if I'm the Phillies, I just have I need to talk to the Philadelphia Phillies for a moment. What are you doing? Why are we doing that? You knew on the day that Sasaki was signing what the Dodgers were trying to do there. You play in the National League. I just said, everybody's like, oh, Dodgers, Mets. Yeah, the Phillies have been in that conversation in years past. We saw it in 2023. What are we doing? Why did you allow them to sign Sasaki?
Because it's nasty work. This is what they do. They dance with the devil.
The Phillies are evil. Evil, evil, evil.
Evil, villainous, heinous. I wonder is that because I'm a Mets fan, or does everyone think that the Phillies, and it's not even just the Phillies, even Eagles fans, the whole city.
No, Philadelphia sports fans, I've said this. I haven't said it in a while, though, so if we have some new viewers, I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and I was a New York sports fan, and it was a terrible time. That's all I have to say. Philly sports fans, you suck.
Yeah, yep.
Anyway,
we have always been Philly sports fans haters. We'll continue to be that way. That was interesting. When I read through these notes, it's interesting to think that it really wasn't about the money. Obviously, comparatively to the other contracts that the Dodgers have and the other people who they need to pay, like this was nothing. This was pennies.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to who else they had available to them, who could hopefully, I guess, woo Sasaki in. They had other players who obviously have come from Japan. I think truthfully, I'm not saying they didn't play by the rules or anything. I do think the Dodgers played by the rules, but I think Sasaki knew he wanted to go to the Dodgers all along.
I would probably agree with that. I think he heard every other team out. I don't think 20 teams are making presentations to him if he's not open to going somewhere else. But I think there might be a little collusion, a little gerrymandering. Who knows what's going on? A little political.
A little this, a little that.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's corrupt.
I just think he knew. I really just think he knew.
Well, I
no
think
corruption.
on a serious note, I think being teammates with Ohtani and Yamamoto in Japan, I think the influence, we've spoken about this a lot, that the Dodgers have in Japan now. I mean, Japan is turning into the Dodgers AAA team, like legitimately.
Yep.
They are getting every big free agent out of Japan, but can you blame them for that? That's a testament to the work that the Dodgers organization has flown out and done over there. The GM going out there, the owner going out there. They have created a relationship that is so valuable over there. I mean, you have to just kind of give credit where credit's due.
You pretty much need to respect that, and you can't hate that. Like it does remind me of like that college football sphere. I know it's not quote unquote recruiting, but it's relationship building.
Yeah, it's kind of recruiting.
That's what it comes down to. And if it is recruiting, then they're damn good recruiters.
Yeah.
They put in the work, laid the groundwork, got the job done, and won. It is what it is.
Yes. Yeah.
You go.
So Jim, what you were kind of just saying before, Jim, I believe it's Bowden, said there were several front offices that believed there was a pre-cut deal between the Dodgers and Roki Sasaki. But then USA Today, Bob Nightingale, we know about Bob Nightingale, whatever. But he did say, he's already shot this down. He said that Major League Baseball officials did a thorough investigation. MLB found no wrongdoing. The Dodgers played by the rules. So we'll see what else comes out on that. I don't really doubt that the Dodgers played by the rules. I think the Dodgers just have a stronghold and a dynasty in terms 100%. Of getting Japanese players. But let's get into, so Roki Sasaki is going to be fantastic. The Dodgers rotation is going to be unbelievable. We know all of that. I wanted to take a deeper dive into Sasaki's story because it's genuinely so interesting. And I'm going to be honest with you all, I just discovered it this very morning when I was researching all of this.
My girl dove into the deep end of the pool today.
I dove into a deep end of the pool. Right.
It was a pencil. It was a cannonball. It was
a belly flop. With a really big splash. Happy Saturday morning. This is what I do on my Saturday mornings. Anyways, so Sasaki actually is a really sad story. All jokes aside, he survived this earthquake and tsunami that then followed in Japan.
Horrific timing on the big splash joke. Truly sorry about that.
So sorry. Not a joking matter at all. So he survived this terrible natural disaster. It was the Tohoku region earthquake, the strongest recorded in Japan at a magnitude of 9.1, and the resulting tsunami killed more than 18,000 and remains the costliest natural disaster to date. This all comes from a New York Times Athletic article that I was reading this morning, all this info, just so you all know. The city in Japan that I cannot pronounce, but the city in Japan where Sasaki is from had just over 23,000 residents before the tsunami, reported 1,800 dead or missing. He was in third grade at the time. He was 8 years old, and he actually lost his father and his paternal grandparents, and then had to move with his mom and his two other brothers who survived the tsunami into a nursing home for a long time. So it was a terrible, terrible tragedy that struck his hometown.
Yeah, I'm going to actually just take not a guess on it, but I try to look up the pronunciation just so everyone knows that we did at least try. I'm pretty sure it's Rikozen Takata. Okay. Rikozen Takata. Yes, okay. Yes. Just so everyone knows where he's from. But yeah, I mean, that's insane. Like, that's absurd that he came from that background and look at where he is now. I was looking through the things that you put in this, and obviously there's a lot here. But the thing that stuck out to me the most was the fact that all of the people from his hometown, including, coaches and people who helped him in his upbringing and through this hardship, are now looking at him and saying, this is our hope. I'm pretty sure that was a direct quote from this. One of his coaches saying, when we look at him now, like, that is our hope.
Yep.
To know that he's essentially carrying an entire city on his back, it makes him an even more lovable player. Like, that's somebody who, whether the Mets got him or not, I'm rooting for him to be successful. And I want to see him do everything that everyone around him believes he can do, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's very easy to look at the surface of a 23-year-old star, you know, who's signing and coming over to America to play baseball and getting these millions of dollars. But he has legitimately been through so much, losing his father, losing other family members, and surviving with his mother and his brothers with literally, the article said, only what they had on their backs. Like, they lost everything in this. So allegedly, he doesn't speak about the tragedy often. He declined to be interviewed for the New York Times story, but he did say in 2021, quote, "I cannot easily erase the agony and sadness I felt at the time. I only have a sense of gratitude to those who supported me." And he implored those too young to have seen the tsunami to not take for granted the things they have now and the precious people around him. He said, "I was happiest playing baseball because I could lose myself for stretches of time. I felt I was able to give my best even through hard times and heartbreaking times." So this does connect to baseball in a sense, because he is coming over here to play in Major League Baseball 2 years before he's really, I guess, supposed to. Like, his chance to sign with a major league club for these Japanese players isn't supposed to be until after 25, when they're permitted to sign a free agent contract, like Yamamoto elected to. That's why Yamamoto got $325 million. Ohtani also left at 23, so he left early as well. So that is why the Dodgers are getting Roki Sasaki for $6.5 million, because he is leaving 2 years before he's supposed to leave at 23. However, because he's considered an amateur, so that's why his payday is restricted to what's available in the international bonus signing pool. But I mean, when you read his story, that makes so much sense. He's not wasting any time. He is when he is ready. He decided that he wanted to come here, because I think when you go through a tragedy and something like that, I mean, you really do realize that every day is precious, and he was not going to waste those 2 years.
Even if, and again, going back to the whole, it wasn't about the money for him. You see that.
Yeah.
You see, like, he could have gotten more money if he waited, but clearly that wasn't the most important thing. That makes sense. He wants to live in the moment. He wants to get things going. He wants to start his career. And end of the day, I mean, technically, didn't Ohtani do something similar? And he has plenty of money now.
Yes. He left at 23 as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that will all work out. I feel like he probably knows that.
Yeah.
But I agree. I really am happy that we talked about that, because I think it's a sad story, but it's really cool to know that every time he's stepping out on the mound, he's playing for something greater than himself. Like, perfect example of what we always say, that sports brings people together.
Absolutely. And I know we do have some Japanese fans who listen to this podcast. So if you have anything to say on Roki Sasaki and all of this stuff, even that region we were talking about, you know, his hometown, if you remember that tragedy, let us know, because I genuinely think it's so interesting. And I know that as much as I'm a Mets fan and I don't want that Dodgers rotation to do well, after learning all that, I surely will be rooting for Roki Sasaki.
There is not one doubt about it. Any last final thoughts, and then we'll get out of here?
I think that's it. We'll see you all next week for another more, baseball free agency roundup. I think we even have more to say on Pete Alonso. Check out that episode from yesterday if you haven't seen it. I know it got a little bit buried on a Friday night. But yeah, the Dodgers get Sasaki and have the craziest rotation that anybody's ever seen in their lives.
Congratulations to the Dodgers. Obviously, once Alonso makes a decision, we'll be coming back here to talk about that. Unless anything happens before that, we will plan to see you back here next Monday. Thanks for sticking with us.